we don't have to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame anymore because we're playing this show tonight. So that's pretty cool.
It becomes a, it's a monument to music, really.
Finally get to play what is probably the coolest music show on television, I think, for sure.
I think we could sit here and just watch those clips all day. So good. ACL, Austin City Limits, the longest running music program in television history. Thank you. And I think you see a little bit why. Currently in season 50, it's produced by Austin PBS with Laconavision. Each year, approximately 18 to 20 shows are taped, and those are edited into a 13-episode series that is streamed for free on the PBS app, online, and on public television stations all across the United States. You'll also see the show syndicated around the world in different forms. So that means there have been over 1,000 studio tapings, hundreds of bands, millions of recorded assets, but at the center of that universe is a long-standing, talented, and passionate group of people, many who have made it their life's work to bring the world's best music to audiences everywhere. So I'm very pleased to introduce some of those very talented folks. So you heard their names, but want to give them a little bit more recognition. We have Emily Wolf, Marketing Director and Associate Producer for Austin City Limits, Terry Lacona, Executive Producer for Austin City Limits, and Jeff Peterson, Producer for Austin City Limits. I'm Sarah Robertson. I'm the Chief Content Officer and the Executive of Production in charge for this fine show. So thank you all for coming to hear us talk, and thanks to South by. We're really excited to share some of these stories and a little backstage peek at what has gone into the last 50 years. So I think an important place to start is how in the world did you start on Austin City Limits? And Terry, I have to direct this to you first.
Well, it was a combination of good timing, serendipity, and being in the right place at the right time. I escaped from my hometown of Poughkeepsie, New York, when I was in my early 20s, fresh out of college, wanted to move someplace warmer and cooler at the same time, and I found Austin, Texas. So I was working in radio at the time, and when I first moved to Austin, I did manage to land a job at the NPR station here, which of course was at the time KUT before they split into two. And the NPR station was in the same building as the PBS station, and I literally arrived in Austin 2 weeks after the first pilot episode with Willie Nelson was recorded. Before then, nobody knew anything about Austin City Limits. But I quickly found out about it, and I was just curious about this thing called television and how to produce a television show, and so I explored all the ins and outs of that, got to know the producers of ACL in the very beginning, and managed to, I volunteered basically to be an assistant to the producers then in the third season. So I missed out on the first 2 years, except that I didn't really miss out. I was actually in the audience, sitting on the floor for many of those first 2 years of tapings. So that's how I got my foot in the door, and needless to say, it's still there.
And we're thankful for that. Jeff, how did you get started on the show? Were you season 3?
About then.
Yeah?
I was a UT student. My main interest was audio. So I volunteered to work at KUT, which is now KUTX and KUT, but the music part of it is KUTX. I met my boss at the time, eventually became the audio supervisor for KLRU, which is now Austin PBS. And so I got my foot in the door that way and became aware of Austin City Limits and started conspiring to basically get on the show one way or the other. And that's basically it. I was in the audio department for several years. I knew Terry. When a position became open, it's not that I applied for it exactly. Terry offered me the job, and I was then the assistant producer. And I've stuck with it ever since, and glad I did.
All right, Emily, how did you get your start?
So actually, Jeff is the one. I was a student at UT. I was in the journalism department, and I actually used to cut out of some labs I had at night to go to tapings when I would see those happening. And one day I saw a flyer in the lobby looking for interns, and I contacted Jeff, applied, and got an internship. That was in 1997. I went and did at the end of that internship, I was like, oh my God, what a dream it would be to be a producer for Austin City Limits. Like, too bad that'll never happen. It had been the same people for 20 years. That was season 23. So, but then a couple years later, I ended up coming on as production coordinator for KLRU, Austin PBS. Did that for a couple years. And again, just like Jeff, I guess I was in the right place at the right time. An assistant producer job opened up, and I was able to become part of the production team. And then over the years, my job has kind of morphed, and was the digital director for many years, managing all the digital platforms and socials. And now I've become the marketing director, and this year I'm overseeing all of the 50th anniversary campaign projects as well. So yeah, it's a dream. Who wouldn't want this job? You don't leave when you get it. So you'll notice this theme. It's like everybody has kind of made this their life's work who's gotten the opportunity.
I'm hearing some of our colleagues laugh about you don't leave once you get this job, because it's very true. And actually, we wanted to acknowledge some of our colleagues who have worked on the show for decades, including David Huff, who is the longtime audio director, Gary Minotti, who has been the director since season 7, so pretty early. Leslie Nichols, Walter Olden, Dan Marthouse, Paul Sweeney, Michael Emery, Robert Moorhead, Ray Lucero. Those are all people who are still working on the show and who have been with the show for a long time. So that's a lot of institutional knowledge. It's really incredible to hear the stories, first of all, but just to think about all the different musical styles that have happened in the last 50 years, the technology, just the change in people's whims. So what was it like 50 years ago, or 50-ish years ago when you all started? What was it like to capture the Austin music scene at that time for television? Jeff, I'm going to pick on you.
Well, the show came to be at a time when Austin was going through a particularly creative spell. There was the cosmic cowboy scare of the 70s. And so there was a lot going on. Americana music was strong. The Armadillo was happening. And we were also right next door to Louisiana and New Orleans. And so we had that pool of talent and that type of music to draw on. So, it's kind of a ready-made launch pad. We could sort of specialize, sort of be regional at first, but soon Terry started bringing in other talent like Tom Waits or whomever early on that kind of expanded the scope, and I think we've been expanding the scope ever since.
Back in 1974, we moved into a brand new facility at the University of Texas campus, the Communications Center. And at the time, that studio, 6A, was the largest studio soundstage between the East and West Coast. So the question when the PBS station moved in and set up shop was what to do with this humongous studio. It was kind of a no-brainer, but actually it took a lot of perseverance on the part of our programmer at the time, Bill Arhost, to convince the station and to pull the resources together to produce a music show in that huge space. And we were there for 36 years.
So it wasn't always top acts and lending our name to festivals and radio stations. It's been a challenge, especially from a non-commercial public media station. So Emily, right around the time that you started was a little bit of a difficult period in the show's history. So I'd like you to share with us a little bit, what was it like and why was it so tough around 25, 30 years ago?
Yeah, so, the show has evolved, and I think all of us kind of think of it a little bit like an underdog. And now, looking back, it's hard to imagine that, it wasn't just a given that Austin City Limits was going to be around. Like, it's, we kind of take it for granted sometimes, but back then, it really was funded season to season, and it relied on getting that funding. And it wasn't like, oh, we're going to do this for the next several years. It was like, are we going to make the money to do this? So, and looking back on that time, it was, I guess about, they were coming off of the 25th anniversary, so it was like a real high point, and everyone was excited. Austin was booming at the time. This was like 99, 2000, and the decision was made to actually double the number of episodes around that time. And as you may remember, there was a .com bust, which meant that we lost some of our funding. And so Austin City Limits really did kind of have this existential crisis at the time. And looking back now, it was a push to create those episodes. We've faced other challenges too, the pandemic recently. But in some ways, it really allowed us to push the brand out and actually become a brand. I remember the first time we referred to it as a brand, everybody was like, ooh. But, 2 years later, there was a deal with C3 to start a music festival. So I think it really pushed the leaders at the time to start thinking of other ways to support the show and keep it going. And I think all of that has just added to the show's evolution and allowed us to, really branch out into genres and get our name out there and, just evolve to where we are today.
So we all picked some clips to share with you all, and Emily gets to play one of the first clips, and it's from around that time when you started. So tell us what we're going to see and why.
Well, one of the clip that I picked is Dolly Parton, Coat of Many Colors. Dolly, of course, was someone that everyone wanted on the show for a long time, and so it was a dream when she finally agreed to come and do the show, or at least made it work. Sometimes, artists want to do it, and for scheduling reasons or, one thing or another, it doesn't work out. It takes a while for it to happen. But when she showed up to the studio, there was, I think everyone in the building knew she was coming, and so the back bleacher was just full of people. And there are much smaller bands out there that would have freaked out that all these people were there for the rehearsal, but not Dolly. She walked in fully Dolly, just, hi y'all, thanks for coming. She was just so happy everyone was there, and it really was, I think one of the most delightful tapings ever. So we can watch it right now, Dolly Parton.
Of course, Mom used to make a lot of our clothes from rags that people used to send up home for her to make quilts out of. And this one time, she made me a little coat, and the story pretty much tells its own self. So I thought you might want to hear this one, even though it's not on the new album. Back through the years, I go wandering once again, back to the seasons of my youth, and I recall this box of rags someone gave us, and how my mama put those rags to use. There were rags of many colors, but every piece was small, and I didn't have a coat, and it was way down in the fall. Mama sewed the rags together, sewing every piece with love. She made my coat of many colors that I was so proud of. While Mama sewed, she told a story from the Bible she had read about a coat of many colors Joseph wore, and then she said, I hope this coat will bring you good luck and happiness. And I just couldn't wait to wear it, and Mama blessed it with a kiss. My coat of many colors that my mama made for me, made only from rags, but I wore it so proudly. And although we had no money, I was rich as I could be, in my coat of many colors Mama made for me.
Love Dolly. I think she's associated with the show, but there's other artists who I think when you think back, oh, that's an ACL artist. So what are some of the other acts or individuals who either, when you think of Austin City Limits and you think of their performance, it's like the perfect ACL performance? Who else comes to mind?
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Of course,
yeah.
you know, Willie has done the show more times than any other single artist, starting with that pilot show. He's been back many times since then. And Lyle Lovett has done the show the second most number of times down through the years. But Stevie Ray, obviously, who did the show twice, was a symbol of that shift in Austin music at the time, from the sort of cosmic cowboy country scene of the 70s to the blues scene. Just really exploded at the time with the fabulous Thunderbirds and Stevie. He did the show twice, at the very beginning of his career when he first gained some recognition, and then at the very end, literally months before he was tragically killed in the helicopter accident. And those two shows bookended a very short but brilliant career. And just the fact that he was from Austin represented so much. And that was really probably the most emotional show that we've done down through the years. And he obviously stands out among the rest.
When I think of kind of iconic artists that have been on Austin City Limits, it's not necessarily just about how many times they've been on, but the kind of melting pot of different types of music that Austin City Limits is known for, that a particular artist may also be known for. And so I would probably pick John Batiste, who combines so many different elements, R&B and blues, classical, Louisiana, New Orleans music. So I guess that would be mine.
New Orleans has always been a big part of the mix when it comes to the shows that we have presented, starting with Fats Domino, the Neville Brothers, and John Batiste, of course, more recently. But I think that proves the point that our show has showcased music, brought music to a national audience that you would not see anywhere else. Back in the day, B.B. King doing a full-hour performance, Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass, doing a full-hour performance. You just didn't see that kind of music presented on national television anywhere, especially like an entire show's worth. I think that's a hallmark of what ACL stands for.
And I think kind of to add on to that, it's Of course, we love it when we get the dollies and we get the legends in, but a big part of the show has always been really committed to music discovery and platforming artists that we believe in. We're very lucky being on PBS and Austin PBS, where you aren't beholden to ratings. You're not beholden to, booking artists with the highest ticket sales. It's really artists that we think deserve to be seen across all genres.
Seeing that clip, you see the skyline, you see the audience, I think there's elements that, that's Austin City Limits. It makes the show instantly recognizable, even though it's been taped in 2 different studios, the set's been slightly different. But what are the other commonalities with the production? And I'm looking at you, Jeff, because I think the audio quality is something that's also been really intentional all 50 years. So what goes into, how is audio treated in Austin City Limits?
Well, not only audio, but the way we're able to shoot the show, and I can talk about that in a minute, but audio has always been a really important part of what we do. It's not hard to believe, given that it's a music show, so it should have really good audio. But even going back to the pilot with Willie Nelson, we brought in a multi-track truck that had a console and ability to record multiple tracks, so that we didn't have to take the audio that was mixed that night live and broadcast that. We were able to remix it and take time to EQ it properly and, have proper EQ and reverb and effects and other things applied to the music. So even from the very beginning, audio's been important. And then the very next year, the station bought all the equipment necessary to multi-track the program. That's kept up, until today. We've just bought a new audio recording console within the last year or two. So yeah, audio is huge. The other thing I mentioned was camera location, the way we're able to shoot the program. Since people aren't paying for seats, we can put cameras up at the stage, and we basically surround the stage with cameras. We only have one camera that is part of the main package that's in the back on a track cam. We do have some roving audience cameras that catch audience, but otherwise, in front of the stage, you've got 4 or 5 cameras, and that creates an immediacy, just visually, that you're right there, that I think is important in the way the music translates to the folks at home.
I think having the cameras and the audience be part of it is part of the experience. And we love the audience. I think the artist really feeds off the audience. So Emily, tell us, what was it like for the audience 50 years ago? What was it like to go to a taping? Who got invited? How did you get a ticket?
Well, I wasn't born. Well, I was just born, so I wasn't there. But
remember back.
But yeah, I think that the audience, if you look at the early footage from the show, the stage was really in the round. The audience was around back. They were, I think from the beginning, Austin City Limits, the audience has just been a very intentional, important part of the show, from that first season where people were literally sitting around the stage. And if you've been to a taping now, you'll see that our stage, along with the cameras, our stage is very low. It's only about 18 inches high, and it actually juts out into the audience, which kind of gives it a little bit of that in the round kind of feel. But in those old, in the olden days when we were in the original studio, I think it was a party. There was free beer, free, it was a great experience. Terry could probably tell us since he was in the audience.
Well, it was known as the cheapest date on campus at the time because it was a free show, great music, and free beer. Some people got a little carried away with the free beer, but that was an incentive, and it made for great enthusiastic audiences. I mean, we had great crowds. Nobody was intimidated by the lights and the cameras or anything like that.
The other important part of the audience, or the getting the proper audience into the show, is that we think about each show in terms of outreach, who we should go after, whether it's what radio station we, ask to announce tickets. A really important part of it is reaching out to the artist and seeing if the artist has a fan club or records, of people who signed up for tickets for an Austin show, and they have their email address or other way to contact them. We reach out to organizations if it's maybe an underserved audience, and we're afraid we won't get the right audience into a show. We partner with organizations around Austin to bring in the right mix of folks.
It's fascinating to me to see how the audiences do change from, say, one show to another. The audiences between Billie Eilish and Randy Newman, for instance, is very, very, very different. We most recently did a show with Juanes, a Latin music superstar, just last week, as a matter of fact, and it was a great audience. People who had probably never been to the ACL Live or to an ACL taping before were really swept up in the moment. And, there are so many other examples. Fish, when we did a show with them, the room took on a certain aura, And it's just great to see everybody who does come, no matter what the show is, no matter what the genre is, or what their ages are, they all just love it. They love the experience of coming to see an Austin City Limits, because they know it's not just another show, it's really part of history.
The biggest issue with Fish was trying to stop people sneaking in the morning of into the studio and hiding.
I think they tried to climb through the AC ducts at one point, but
And that was the historic Studio 6A. Security is a little tighter at the studio where we tape now, which is ACL Live at the Moody.
Don't get any ideas.
And then that move happened in 2011. And it was, I think, difficult to imagine creating that magic in a new place. But it was designed to capture that and really keep an intimate performance. So you have a clip, Jeff, that I think kind of speaks to all those different elements. So why don't you tell us what we're going to see now?
Sure. I was just going to say the two most important parts of the show is the artist and the audience. Without those two things, the show really wouldn't be successful. We have to bring in talent that people want to see, that are creative, that evoke an emotional response. But if the artist doesn't get feedback from the audience, they just don't put on their best show. And they don't walk off stage, walking on air, telling all their buddies what a great show Austin City Limits is to play. So that's super important.
So who are we going to see?
We're going to see Kendrick Lamar. The song is All Right. He was touring behind a Genius album to Pimp a Butterfly. And this is a good illustration of how great the audiences are in Austin and how their participation can really draw out the best in an artist. Before we joined the video, we got a chant starting. There was a chant starting from the back of the studio and kind of building and spreading. And then we go to this. Please roll it.
we gon' be all right.
All's my life hard times like y'all, bad trips like Nazareth. I'm on one, you on one. God up, we gon' be up. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. And when I recognize you looking at me for the Bahamas.
Well,
I should add that Kendrick didn't plan on doing the song at that point, so it wasn't easy for him to shift gears because he had a track person that was rolling tracks. They had a band, but they also had tracks. But anyway, it altered the course of the show, and it was directly coming from the audience.
He came off the stage and he said, I felt like I was playing to a music festival. And that's what makes Austin City Limits different.
And also, I mean, where else are you going to see a performance like that where you see the whole thing? I mean, first of all, there's not many long format music shows that exist anymore, but that would have gotten, whole intro, all that energy, all that buildup would have gotten cut, you know, if it was some other show where you're just showcasing one song, or, you know, this format really gives artists the ability to kind of create the energy and do something pretty awesome like that.
Yes, they predicted the end of live music on television when MTV and VH1 came along. And guess what? We're still doing it 50 years later. MTV, VH1. If you like reality programming, nothing wrong with that, but that's mostly what you'll get.
so you set the stage to let magic happen. But what is it like to sit in the control room to see something like that? That was not rehearsed, that was not planned, that was not on the set list. What's going through your head, Terry, when you see Kendrick Lamar going off script but creating magic?
Usually something like, where is this going? What happens next? No, it happens all the time, and it's exciting. I mean, it's not live TV. It's not like the Grammys where you could go off the deep end, but because there's always editing. But it's exciting to see an artist, a band, get so caught up in the moment that sometimes, and they have said this, they almost forget they're doing a television show. They feel like they're just doing a concert. The camera's almost like disappear into the crowd. And they feel free basically to do whatever they want to, whatever they're inspired to do.
Has it gotten easier to book acts? Do you just say, turn the TV on and say yes to my invitation?
In some ways, it's gotten easier. I book all of the talent with a lot of input and ideas from the rest of my team, from my neighbors, the plumber. Everybody has an opinion or a favorite artist they'd love to see on Austin City Limits. But in the sense that the show is so eclectic now that we represent every genre of music out there, as long as it's good and original and authentic. But on the other hand, it's tough in today's environment, especially post-COVID. Touring is so expensive that we have to ask an artist to essentially take a day off to come and do our show and lose money in the process, because they still have to pay the expense of having a large touring band and entourage out on the road. But they do it because they respect the show that much. They realize that the show has integrity and it captures their music in a way that nothing else does. So if anything, the biggest challenge I have is having to stop booking after we filled our 20 tapings for the season and 13 episodes for that year. And I wish we had the resources and the funding to continue to do more, but that's a good problem to have, I think.
I think something that's also not as well known about the production of the show is that the artist is really involved. They don't just show up, sing their set, and then leave. They're asked to rehearse. They give quite a bit of input as well. So what is it? Tell us more, Jeff, about the collaboration aspect of this show.
When we tape a show, we're trying to capture the artist's show that they've taken on the road at that point in time. So we don't tell them what to play. We don't tell them where to stand or any of those things that some shows actually do. We give them 75 minutes, sometimes more, to do their thing. If they talk from stage, we ask them to talk from stage. Whatever they normally do, we try to incorporate as much of their lighting, instruments, as well as their design as possible. We invite their LD to run the console, certain parameters that we have to follow, of course, for television, but we do try to get those elements of their roadshow into the program. We just work with them creatively on taping day, but also in post-production, we offer them and encourage them to do their own remix. We let them pick their own songs. Sometimes we go back to them, and certainly if there's a timing issue, doesn't time out right for the program length, we'll change that. But even if they start with a song that we don't think is going to appeal to a TV audience as much, a TV audience being somewhat distracted, we'll ask them to change the order maybe. We might ask them very occasionally to substitute some songs, like if for whatever reason they left out a song that they're known for, and they're kind of just past that song on this tour, but it's maybe the first time they've done the show. We'll do that, but otherwise, it's pretty much carte blanche.
And Terry, what do they say about that freedom they have, about the chance to really present a show on television that they're proud of and that they had a part in? Do they like that input? Do they appreciate it?
Oh, yeah, of course, absolutely. They don't get that kind of freedom, as Jeff said, anywhere else when they do, especially when they do television. So sometimes they're surprised if it's the first time they're doing Austin City Limits when they hear, oh, we can just put together whatever set lists we want, and we can pick the songs that are going to air on PBS, and we get to remix the music the way we want it to sound because it's their music. I mean, that part of it, the sound, like Jeff talked about earlier, had a lot to do with why I was able to book certain artists to do Austin City Limits in the very, very early years when it wasn't even that well known among the general public. I mean, in my second year as producer, I was able to talk Ray Charles into coming to tape a show after his manager had turned us down by going backstage when he played a show in Austin and waiting patiently to get in to talk to him in his dressing room. And a moment I'll never forget, of course, but when I was starting to explain to him what Austin City Limits was and ask if he would do it, he cut me off and said, oh, I know about that show. It's about the music, and it sounds good. Because he, of course, could tell the difference. I mean, music sounded like crap back in those days, 1970s. Most people had a 3-inch speaker on their TV set at home, so especially music sounded really bad. We were one of the only shows, maybe the only show at the time, to really care about it. We even had radio stations, FM stations around the country, simulcasting our show when it would air on PBS so that people could tune into their FM station while watching the show on their little 12-inch screen. So we cared, it made a difference. The artists noticed then, and they noticed still.
Well, I think it's clear you all are huge music fans. I mean, you both got your start in radio, and a lot of our crew are musicians themselves. Terry mentioned he gets suggestions from everybody, and he's not joking. He's very gracious, but we all give suggestions to Terry about the bands we want to see. And sometimes we get to see those bands on the stage. So my clip is a band I've loved my whole life, REM, and this was taped in 2009. It'll probably say it on the clip. One of the really fun things is the editors and the producers like to edit in people they know. And I was lucky enough to actually attend this show and then appear in the episode. I had no idea, so it was fun to watch it air. So we're going to watch a little bit of that and all the shiny, happy people faces that are in the audience. REM.
Moses went walking with the staff of war. no good. Yeah, 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 yeah. Egypt was troubled by the horrible asp. Yeah, 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 yeah. Mr. Charles Darwin had the balls to ask. Yeah, 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 yeah. So Andy, did you hear about this one? Tell me, are you locked in the pond? Hey Andy, are you goofing on Elvis? Hey baby, are you having fun? If you believed they put a man on the moon, if you believed there's nothing up your sleeve, that nothing is cool.
I did volunteer to do security for that taping. Luckily, I was just in the audience. But you see, people are so happy to be there, and especially when they're the fans. I think it just makes it so special. Got to thank Michael Toland for finding all these clips. And as you can imagine, there are so many clips to go through. I have to read this because it's just impressive. Prior to switching to digital, we had amassed over 4,200 analog magnetic tape, 2,000 backup tapes on all sorts of different formats, over 1,500,000 digital assets. That is a lot of stuff. So, what have we done to preserve this history for the future? And I don't think we probably would have even imagined we were going to preserve it. But Emily, talk a little bit about what's done to capture or keep this for future.
Well, it's funny, it reminded me, so when my first job in 2000 as production coordinator, one of the things I did was transfer 1-inch tape to D3, which was archiving it at the time. So literally, this has been a decades-long process of trying to digitize the archive, everything from 2-inch tapes, 1-inch tapes, and that tape actually deteriorates. So it was kind of a race against time, but also, as you can imagine, again, a huge expense, but the archive is digitized. The video is digitized. All of the audio source tapes are digitized, and we are currently working on, we still have binders full of photographs, negatives, slides, all of that is being digitized. So Austin PBS has brought in a fully trained archivist who has been in charge of this, and she is doing an amazing job of preserving these treasures. I mean, there are just performances in our archive that truly don't exist anywhere else. I mean, performances from people like Townes Van Zandt, Lightnin' Hopkins, I'm trying to think of other artists, but there's just not video footage of a lot of these people, particularly from the early years. So it's really important from a historical perspective to try to save it. And you know, one of our goals has always been to try to make our archives available on demand. We are constantly trying to work towards that. As you can imagine, there are just massive rights issues that you have to clear, publishing, performance, labels, all of that. So it is, it's a huge project, but it's something that we hope one day our archives will see the light of day, and you'll be able to go back and watch some of these just treasures.
Along with the video and audio is the photography of Scott Newton, who has captured almost every season of Austin City Limits, not the first couple, as he'll remind us, but his work over the years, he's just able to get things that you just can't through video. So we're really lucky to have captured these tapings in so many different ways. So 50 years is a long time. And why do you think the show has been around for so long? I mean, I think we've said some of the elements, but still, 50 years. It's impressive. So Jeff, why do you think the show's been around for so long?
I'll go back to artists and audiences.
Terry?
That's it.
Well, you know,
You add to
actually, there's a lot more to it than just that. The support of the community, the people of Austin has as much, if not more, than anything else for the reason this show has grown, not only survived, but thrived down through the years. The city of Austin itself has been the longest time funder of the show, in addition to the numerous other underwriters that have come and gone. I mean, through good times and bad, such as the pandemic, our financial supporters, our friends have been there and continue to support the show and to contribute money to not only Austin City Limits, but Austin PBS, which of course has been the home for ACL for all of these years. And there's just something special about Austin, as a lot of you know, whether you live here or just come to visit during South by Southwest. As big as the city has grown, there still is that sense of community, that heart and soul and love for music that has really done a lot to keep us around. And I think the fact that the show has evolved, we're not just stuck in time back in the 70s or 80s, or the music that our first generation of audience might have grown up with listening to, and I think that's been a really good, healthy thing for the show.
And I would just add that, to me, Austin PBS and the people that were there that just kept pushing the show through hard times, and PBS, being our partner in airing it nationally. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that the longest running music show is on public television. Music shows are niche shows. People may not watch every episode, and we've been extremely lucky to be able to keep it going and not have to focus on ratings and ad dollars and things like that. So I think that's been a huge part of our success too.
So Terry picked the final clip we're going to watch today, and I think it does a great job of blending the old and the new, but I'm going to let you set this clip up.
A bit of nostalgia, and this was a major milestone in the show. We realized about 15 years ago that we had outgrown our home for 36 years, Studio 6A on the UT campus, and it was time to find a bigger space. Easier said than done. Again, we were a PBS station with very limited resources, but I can remember going on scouting tours to an old bakery, to a garage, thinking that maybe we could convert this into a new studio, when we were approached by a developer, commercial developer, Stratus Properties, who basically said they wanted to build a new home for Austin City Limits in the middle of downtown Austin. And they asked, would you be willing to move if we paid for it? Well, it didn't take long to come around and decide this was an amazing opportunity. And here we are in our 14th year at the Moody Theater in downtown Austin at ACL Live. And Jeff had a lot to do with the design of the new space to try to capture what made Studio 6A so special, that intimacy, but with 10 times as many people in the audience. But we did it. We were terrified in some ways once we made that move. But the very last show that we did in Studio 6A was Lyle Lovett, who, as I said, more than anybody except for Willie Nelson, has done Austin City Limits more times. So we just thought it would be appropriate to invite Lyle to come back and do the last show in Studio 6A. And he had a bit of a surprise for us when he did his final song, his song Closing Time. And you'll see for yourself what that surprise was.
It's been the dedication of all the folks behind the scenes since the beginning of Austin City Limits that have made this show what it is. We'd like to do one more song to close out Austin City Limits at Studio 6A. And we would love it if you guys would leave your posts and join us on stage.
Y'all abandoned your post.
Terry, thank you so much for having us. This one's for all of y'all and for Austin City Limits.
At night she is a true companion. They shuffle in and they hear the sound. But by night's end, it's nights abandoned. You look across the floor, ain't anyone around. Closing time, unplug them people and send them home. It's closing time.
So what happened when we all abandoned our posts and got up on stage was that the interns took over the cameras and the directing, and that's why we were able to capture that moment. I'm so glad that we did. But it speaks volumes to when we talk about it's like family, it really is. People like Bonnie Raitt, Dave Grohl, and the Foo Fighters, so many others down through the years, Willie, and of course, Lyle. You can see just from when everybody was together on the stage how important that is, how important that chemistry is.
So we have a couple questions from the audience. Thank you very much. We want to make sure we have some time. So, Emily, I'm going to ask you this first one. Will there be any special merch to celebrate the 50th season? Well, what a great question.
What a great question. Yes, there will be special merch. So, yeah, we're actually doing some retail collaborations with some local brands, and we will have 50th merch that will be dropping throughout the year. Some of it's centered around some of the events that we're doing, but yeah, we have a collection that's going to launch in a couple weeks with Howler Brothers, and this is kind of a re-release of the Willie shirt that he wore in the pilot, which is pretty cool. So yes, there's going to be a lot of merch, and also if you want to find out more about what we're doing for our 50th, go to aclturns50.com and sign up, and we will send you all the details of everything that we've got coming up. Lots of really fun things.
Another question, can you describe how and when C3 came into the picture and how that affected the show? We touched on it a little bit earlier, but it'd be good to elaborate on that.
Sure. I mean, back, if you've been around Austin long enough, you might remember the Aqua Festival that used to take place every summer, which eventually everybody stopped going to. But so the fact that there was no music festival in Austin just really stood out. And a group came along. At the time, they were called Capital Sports and Entertainment, and they wanted to start a music festival, and they approached us about using our name to give them the kind of credibility to book the talent and to sell tickets to support a live music festival in Zilker Park. So, of course, we also agreed to that partnership, and it was a true partnership. They invested in the show and upgrading us to high definition equipment. And it's been a great relationship for 20-plus years now with what's become C3, who with Live Nation produced the music festival. We collaborate with them as far as what talent they're looking to book for headliners and other slots, and we're doing the same with tapings around the time of the fest.
Tim asks, many artists credit ACL with boosting their careers. Can you elaborate on specific ways the show has fostered artist discovery and career development?
Willie Nelson wouldn't have become what he is without Austin City Limits. We all know that.
Well, it certainly helped his career. Let's put it. let's put it that way. But there are so many others, and as Emily said, the idea of discovering somebody or some music you've never seen or heard before, and we have heard that over and over again over the years, and it is true. And Gary Clark's a great example of that. Homegrown Austin talent. He wore out his parents' VHS tapes of Stevie Ray's ACL show, learning to play every guitar note exactly the same way that Stevie Ray did at the time. And now he certainly has a great career on his own, and we're getting ready to tape a new show with Gary Clark in about 2 weeks from now, as a matter of fact. I do want to answer just one other question I see. Name an artist that you would like to have appear who has yet to do so on Austin City Limits.
I'll answer that. Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen. And Bruce Springsteen would be great if he would come and do it. And I'm not sure why he hasn't, but there is still hope.
If he's listening.
We never give up.
What are your top 3 performances at ACL through the 50 years? And this is an impossible question to answer. So we saw some highlights, but are there anything that we've missed talking about or any particular artists that you really enjoyed working with? See, way to stump a panel, asking, especially this group, what's your favorite?
Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, some of them are, honestly, like, I have loved, when I was a producer working with the bands, it wasn't necessarily like those top tier, big, legendary bands that were the most fun to work with. It was more the like, this was a big break, like this was a huge deal for these kind of up and coming bands to be on Austin City Limits. And just like, I remember Ben Queller, performing on Austin City Limits for the first time. And he was just like, he was just so excited about it. And I remember watching the playback with him and his band, and they were just like, so to me, it's kind of moments like that where this was really meaningful to someone, as a huge milestone in their career. But of course, yes, the big shows are also a total blast. So.
James Taylor was a big star, but he was an amazing guest in our house and just interacted with so many different people and was completely curious about what other people were up to and was just the nicest guy.
Johnny Cash, the one time he did the show, he admitted right beforehand he was nervous. This is the guy who had had his own TV show for years and years and had been all over the world by then, and yet doing Austin City Limits was that special to him that he got a little nervous about it. John Batiste, his recent show within the last couple of years was one of the most incredible, mesmerizing live performers I've ever seen on that stage. It was almost a spiritual thing that happened that night, among many others. We're running out of time.
We are running out of time, and that's probably a great story to end on. So thank you so much for your time and interest today and your support. And we hope to be around for another 50 years.